Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's book to show comparison for the Expanse Season 3, Episode 13, Abaddon's Gate. This video is part of a series of videos where I compare the Expanse TV show to its source material, pointing out the differences and giving my opinion on how well these adaptations work. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for The Expanse up to the end of Season 3. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. However, this video will not contain spoilers from the novels that occur beyond Season 3, so if you have seen up to the end of Season 3, you are safe from future spoilers. So our episode begins in the Holden cells where Holden is alone trying to talk to Miller while Drummer, Naomi, and an OPA security officer named Egan watch Holden on the monitor. Drummer tells Naomi she doesn't know what she sees in him, as clearly he looks crazy. However, Miller does eventually appear, but we see from Naomi and Drummer's perspective where it looks like Holden's talking to thin air. But from Holden's side of the conversation, we can ascertain that Miller is telling Holden that since the behemoths set off a nuke, the station is getting ready to kill them all, and then tells him the solution is to get all the ships to disable their engines cores, as that will prove to the station that they're not a threat. So he looks into the camera and tells Naomi that he knows how to fix this. So in the novels, Holden talks to Miller while he's being held prisoner by the Martians, who tells him about the solution of getting out of the situation. So he already knows this by the time he boards the behemoth. In fact, he tells this to Bull and Pa, who act to implement his plan. Unfortunately, Ashford regains control of the ship before they can do so. So Holden actually doesn't talk to Miller or feel the need to talk to Miller once he's on the behemoth. However, this works for the situation the show set up, and this is quite a humorous scene that also works in building tension, so I'm going to give this a +1. We then see Ashford in the command center when Drummer contacts him and tells him Holden has a plan to get them out of there. Ashford is surprised that she's out of bed and more surprised that she's with Holden, asks if she's in the brig. Drummer lies and says that she is. Ashford is also surprised to learn Naomi is with her. Drummer tells him of Holden's plan to disable the engines to prove to the station that they're not a threat, but Ashford retorts that the station killed a lot of their people, so they're the threat, not them. And he then suggests that perhaps Holden is the threat. He then asks to see Drummer, and she says that's a good idea and that she's on her way, but clearly she's lying. And it appears that Ashford can tell this as well, as he sends Diago to lead a security team to retrieve her. So, in the novels, as I touched on previous videos, Bull and Pa relieved Ashford of command and locked him in the holding cell, but Ashford conspired with Hector Cortez and several high-ranking UN and Martian officers to break out of the brig and stage a coup. The coup works faster than Bull and Pa can notice, and before they realize it, Ashford has taken the command center and the engine room. Bull first hears about it from his deputy Corin, who tells him when she tried to enter the security offices, officers drew down on her and she forced her to leave. Now, throughout the novel, we followed Bull and his two closest deputies, Serge and Corin. So he tells Corin to secure the office where Monica Stewart is operating out of, as he sees being able to communicate with the fleet as critical. So she does so and tries to gain as many allies as she can along the way. When Serge hears about the coup, he takes the security team to the civilian area on the drum, and when he sees teams roaming through with guns, he tries to command them to leave, but they simply kill him and then take the other security men hostage. Bull, for his part, goes to hide, and he's sure Ashford is sending men to kill him, and he calls Pa and tells her to do the same, but she's already on it. Pa eventually finds a hiding place, but apparently was injured in the process, so we don't really hear from her for the rest of the book. So the book's version was not only far more exciting, as the coup storyline was super intense, it also made a bit more sense, because in the show, Drummer is technically still the captain, so she shouldn't feel the need to hide from Ashford, so I'm going to give this a -4. So then Drummer asks Egan to give her his weapon, and he does. She then tells him that she can knock him out, so he doesn't seem complacent, but he insists that he's with her. He points to Holden on the monitor and says that he's a belter, also has what he did on Eros and Ganymede. So Drummer gives him his gun back. So in the novels, while Bull is going to hide, he contacts Sam and asks for help, and Sam tells him she's sending the only people she can trust to help him. When trouble starts brewing, Holden and his crew also feel the need to hide, so they contact Sam to find a good hiding spot, and she asks them to help Bull. At this stage, Naomi and Alex are injured and can't walk, so they cart them around on a hospital bed. Once they're in a safe place, Holden and Amos go to meet Bull, and they agree to help him. Bull then contacts Korn, who by this stage has recruited about 30 soldiers to their cause, and he tells her to bring them and meet them at the administration office, which has become the new studio for Monica Stewart's radio-free slow zone, as Bull plans to make that his base of operations. So Bull assembles his army there, which includes Holden and the Reuniting crew, and from there they make plans on what to do about Ashford. So, I'm sorry, but I don't understand why Drummer is planning on doing this in secret by herself, and why she doesn't just try to recruit more people the way Bull did. First of all, she's the captain, so she can simply order Ashford and the others to do Holden's plan, and if they refuse, she can declare a mutiny, and those who support her would flock to her cause. And as was made clear earlier in the show, there is a clear division between Fred Johnson's people and Dawes' people, and while Ashford would command the loyalty of Dawes' people, Drummer should easily be able to secure the loyalty of Johnson's people, and probably more of the crew as well, since she's still the captain of the ship. In fact, this gives her an advantage over Bull in the novels, who didn't know who was on his side and who was on Ashford's side, but for Drummer, that divide is actually quite clear. So why she decides to go off on her own and not even try to recruit more people other than just one security officer makes no sense. I mean, it's not just that it doesn't hold up compared to the novels, but for the scenario that the show set up in itself, it makes no sense. So I'm going to give this a -5. So then Drummer, Holden, Naomi, and Egan gear up and prepare to take the engine room. Holden contacts Alex and Amos, who are relieved to hear from him, and he tells them the situation with the slow zone and how they need to disable all the ships, but Ashford is blocking them from doing so. Amos asks what he wants of them, so Holden tells them to go to Monica Stewart and get her to convince everyone in the slow zone to disable their engines. Naomi assures them that she tied the news feed into the transmitter, making it impossible to shut down. But Amos points out that will make it easy for Ashford to track them, so they'll send men to stop them. Amos also points out that convincing everyone to turn off their engines is going to be a tough sell, but Holden simply tells him to think of something, as he has his own things to worry about. So in the novels, after Bull assembles his army at the makeshift broadcast station, he comes up with a plan to take engineering. His plan is to distract Ashford with Monica's broadcast, as he tells her to say in her broadcast that Ashford is mentally ill and shouldn't be in command, and that he's a small man who doesn't really know what he's doing. As he knows this will anger Ashford enough to send men to take the broadcast station, which will make it easier for him and his men to take engineering and the command center. So Holden, Naomi, and Alex plan to go with Bull in the assault on engineering. However, Alex plans to part with them just before they get there in order to take an EV suit to the Reuniting so he can shut down the power. And it should be noted that the show actually never addressed that the Reuniting's engines was still on and how that power didn't get turned off, but whatever. Anyway, Amos plans to stay behind with the team to defend the broadcast station against the forces Ashford is going to send to stop them. So although the two versions are similar, the book's version is much longer, much more involved than this mere 2-minute scene. So I'm going to give this a -4. So Amos then goes to Anna, as he probably figures she's the best one who would be able to convince everyone to turn off their engines. He grabs her by the arm and tells her that she needs to come with them. She says that she's busy, referring to the work she's doing looking after the wounded. Amos tells her that nothing she does there matter, but she disagrees. Amos then levels with her that unless they can convince a whole lot of people to do something they don't want to do, everyone's going to die. So in the novels, when Bull tries to figure out how to implement Holden's plan, he realizes he's going to need someone to convince everyone to turn off their engines, so he first thinks of Anna. He asks Corin about her, and she reports that she's being held up in a church tent with a bunch of her followers, as they're staying there for protection, so he asks her to go retrieve them. When she comes back with Anna, she reports that all of her church group came with her, which is mostly consists of soldiers from Earth, Mars, and the Belt, so they get an influx of more people to join Bull's army, which is great news. Anna, for her part, is more than willing to help bring everyone together, so the idea is basically the same, but the book's version has the added bonus of adding her church group to the stockpile of people helping them, which justifies all of Anna's previous sermons and building the group, and it shows how she inspired people more than the show did, so I'm going to give this a -2. So we then go to the command center, where Ashford gets a call from Diago, who informs him that Holden and Drummer are not in the holding cells. Ashford freaks out and yells at Diago to find them and says that he's on it. Just then, an electrician working nearby is electrocuted, and Grigori runs over to minimize the damage, as well as calling for a medic. Ashford asks him how long this will set them back, but Grigori doesn't answer and just says there's a lot of work that Ashford wants to get done, and he asks why. Ashford levels with him and tells him that the station keeps killing them and it's time that they fight back. So Grigori agrees to get more people. So in the novels, they don't work to upgrade the comm laser in the command center. This is done exclusively in the engine room, which does make a lot more sense. Also in the novels, it's not a matter of manpower, it's a matter of Sam keeps stalling them, but I'll get more into that later. As for this scene, it's fine for what the show established, so I'm going to give this a 0. So we then go to Monica Stewart, who's recording a broadcast in a cargo bay about how she hears reports about the crew of the Behemoth working overtime to make modifications, but she has no idea what these modifications are for, when Amos comes in and interrupts her, telling her that she needs to come with them now. Monica tells Amos that he can go to hell. Alex suggests that she get Cohen and they can go. But she informs them that Cohen died walking through her door during the slow zone incident. Amos levels with her that she wants him to feel bad because she's angry, and she wants him to feel guilty that Cohen's dead, but he doesn't, and he never will, so he suggests that they skip the bullshit to where she agrees to help. She asks him help do what, and Anna steps forward and says the station is about to attack them, but Holden knows how to stop it, and she knows that she wants answers, and they have them, and they will save lives, so they need her to get the word out. Monica simply says that they should have led with that and grabs her camera back from Alex. So in the novels, Cohen had also died during the slow zone incident, which they found out about when they met up with her in the broadcast space when Bull made that his headquarters. However, in the novels, there were 2 other members of her team, Oakju and Clip, and both of them were still alive. Also, as I mentioned in the novels, she wasn't operating out of a cargo bay. She had her own broadcast newsroom that had lights set up and a green screen, and it was a makeshift studio. And Bull went there asking for her help. She had no problem, except for when Bull asked her to slant the truth a bit about Ashford to make him look bad in order to provoke him. She argued that she's not a propagandist, but Bull argued back that it's what's needed to be done to save lives. She agrees to it on the condition that Bull give her an exclusive interview on everything that went down once they're safe, and he agrees. So I think either way works for the respective mediums, so I'm going to give this a 0. So then we go to Drummer, Egan, Holden, and Naomi in an elevator on the way to the reactor core. Drummer tells Egan to keep everyone away from the reactor core and asks him if he knows anyone he trusts down there, and he says he knows some people and goes to call ahead to secure their help. Then we see Naomi and Holden reconnect as Holden apologizes to her for pushing her away, but she clarifies that he didn't push her away and that she's never going to leave him again. They then hold hands and make googly eyes at each other. So in the novels, they couldn't simply take an elevator to the reactor core. Getting there was a lot harder and involved taking what they referred to as carts there through the drum. When they always mention carts in the books, I always pictured like golf carts, but it's probably meant to be a bit more futuristic and industrial, kind of like a car, but meant to move through pedestrian areas so not too fast. Anyway, it wasn't as simple as them calling ahead and clearing engineering, as Ashford had an army blockaded there, protecting it. Of course, the novels was a different scenario where several mutinies already took place, so people were more on edge. But still, Ashford knows that Drummer's on the loose, like securing the engine room should be a priority. Now, in this scene, Drummer does get Egan to secure some help, but as we will soon see, it's only one person. So I stand by that Drummer could have done way more to secure support, and she possibly could have gotten more people than Ashford if she even freaking tried. As for Holden and Naomi reuniting, they never separated in the book, so a scene like this wasn't necessary. In fact, Holden didn't want Naomi to come along because he thought it was too dangerous, but Bull needed an engineer, and she was the best one they had. So I really liked this scene with Naomi and Holden. It was definitely needed in the show's version, and it was a subtle way to get the point across really effectively, so I'm going to give this a +3. So then we see Zero G take over, and Drummer feels more like herself as the mech floats free. They then arrive at the reactor core where Egan's one friend is waiting for them, so they both stand guard outside. Holden tosses a grenade in the elevator so no one can follow them, and then he, Naomi, and Drummer proceed inside the core. They float in from above with their guns drawn on the two people that are there and tell them to get away from the controls, which they do with their hands up, and Holden locks them in a storage closet while Naomi gets to work. So in the novels, taking the engine room was much harder. It was basically a battle, as Bull had an army, including the 4 Martian Marines that had taken Holden prisoner, as they met up with Bull on the way and offered their assistance. So when Bull's team got to the entrance of the engine room, they crashed their carts against the wall to use them as barricades to hide behind, and Ashford team started firing at them immediately, and several people were immediately killed. But amongst the Martian Marines was a sharpshooter named Juarez who perched on a cart and used his sniper rifle to take out key targets while the rest of the Bulls team pushed them back with rapid fire. This approach slowly worked as Ashford men kept retreating until they retreated into the engine room, where the Martians killed the rest of the Ashford's men with grenades. So it was a long, bloody battle in which Bull lost a lot of people, but they managed to take the engine room, where Naomi finally got to work. I know the show set up a different situation where a battle like this wasn't really necessary, but it was far too easy for them to take the reactor core, and there were only 2 guys there. That being said, I love the set of the reactor core. It looked amazing, and the shot of Holden, Drummer, and Naomi floating down looked really cool. But story-wise, it just does not compare to the epic battle that took place in the engine room, which was far more exciting. So I'm going to give this a -3. So then we follow Alex, Amos, Anna, and Monica as they go down some random corridor and find a power set up so Monica can hook her camera equipment into. Alex helps her do that while Amos goes on watch. Anna keeps him company. Amos tells her that it can't be like this, like it was before, where she tried to stop him from killing Melba, as people will be coming to kill them, so he will have to kill them. And Anna asks why, because it needs to be done, and Amos nods. Anna then tells them that she left her family behind and she promised to see them again, and if she dies, she never will. Amos says that everyone has unfinished business, that's what dying is. Anna asks him what his unfinished business is, and he answers that he'll never get to kill Ashford. Anna's puzzled, as the thing he will regret the most is not killing someone that he never met, but Amos answers that he's sending people to kill them. Anna says that everyone on both sides has their reasons for doing what they're doing, and once this is all over, they have to find a way to understand why everyone did what they did in order to let go of the hate. She then touches his shoulder and says that hate is a burden, you shouldn't carry yours with you. He then promises her that he won't let her die. So in the novels, as I explained, they don't broadcast from some random corridor. That they have a makeshift studio, a headquarters set up with like a barricade, and that's all protected. And Amos and a team of soldiers have heavily fortified. Just before Bull takes his team to leave to go to engineering, Anna remarks on how sad it makes her that all these people are going to kill other people. Monica, her team, Anna, and Tilly are worried that they won't make it, so Bull asks Holden to tell them why they shouldn't be worried. So Holden explains that Amos is there to protect him, and Amos is the biggest badass there is, and he feels sorry for anyone who tries to kill him. Amos helps Anna get out of the way as all the people rush to go to war, and they have a little talk that was similar to what they did here, where Amos promises that he's not going to let anyone hurt her, and she hugs him and tells him that he's a good man, but he says that he really isn't. So it seems that the show has latched on to something that was kind of explored in novels, but the show fleshes it out more, and that's the relationship between Anna and Amos, and I think they did a wonderful job with it, as Amos actually seems to respond to her, and she makes him feel better about himself, and he really does appreciate her. Plus, in this scene, Anna does come off as the persuasive and wise voice of reason that she should, so I'm going to give this a +3. So then we go to the engine room where Holden tells Naomi to be ready to shut down the core when the other ships do. Holden then goes to Drummer and thanks her for believing in him, but Drummer says she isn't there for him, she's here because Naomi would die for him, and she's here to make sure that she doesn't. So in the novels, Bull, Sam, and others who try to help Holden enact his plan, but they don't necessarily believe him either. They just want to stop Ashford because he's an idiot, so any plan opposed to one that Ashford supports is one that they're on board with. In fact, when Bull first meets Holden, he questions him on why he thinks his plan is any better than Ashford's, and Holden's only response is, while the consequences of Ashford enacting his plan, if Holden is right, is too great to risk, and that is the annihilation of humanity as a whole. So Bull eventually agrees to it. Sam likewise has more of a friendship with Naomi than the rest of the Reuniting crew, so when she reaches out to them, it's mainly through her, which is kind of similar to Drummer's friendship with Naomi. So either way is fine, so I'll give this a 0. So we then go to the command center where they bring in a bunch of people to help in retrofitting the comm laser, including Melba because she's an electrician. Meanwhile, Grigori reports that they lost contact with the reactor control room, so Ashford contacts Diago and tells him that Holden and the others are there. So in the novels, as I already stated, the retrofit of the comm laser is done exclusively in the reactor core room, not the command center. Also, as I talked about in my previous video, Hector Cortez recruited Clarissa Mal when he first freed Ashford. And the purpose of bringing her along was because everyone knew she was a badass who blew up a UN ship, and that she had battle implants. She deduced that Ashford wanted her as a showpiece to show off how tough and command he was, and she also described the other OPA members of the team she was in as being frightened by her, where she had wished that someone would just smile at her. To me, this makes a lot more sense than simply needing more electricians, so they take her from the holding cell to help repairs. Plus, retrofitting the comm laser is more of an engineering thing than an electrician thing, so I'm going to give this a -3. So then we go to the engine room where Naomi detects the changes Astrid is trying to make with the comm laser, and eventually she deduces he's trying to destroy the ring. Drummer asks if that will work, but Holden says it doesn't matter, as in doing so it will prove to the station that humanity is a threat and it will kill everyone on both sides of the ring. Dun dun dun. So in the novels, Holden and the others already knew about Astrid's plan before they took engineering, which is the main reason why they took it, to prevent him from completing his plan. Again, the others on Holden's side didn't necessarily believe that if Astrid enacted his plan it would destroy all of humanity. They just didn't want to take the risk. And Bull would often use this as a way to recruit people, so he acted like he fully believed it when really he didn't, because it was just a good selling tool. So it made people on Holden and Bull's side more motivated to stop Astrid than they are here in the show, which I think works so much better. So I'm going to give this a -4. So Drummer then contacts Astrid and tells him that he knows what he's doing and that he can't destroy the ring, but Astrid tells her that she's no longer in command. Holden tells him that he doesn't need to do this, there's a way to save them all, but Astrid retorts that it's not the point, and it's their duty to protect the lives of everyone back home, and if they do nothing, they'll be leaving behind an unexploded bomb, and sooner or later someone will set it off. But Naomi retorts that if Holden is right, he'll be the one setting it off. Astrid tries to plead with Drummer that she is a true belter and that she was willing to lay her life down for a greater good, but Drummer simply says that she still is and cuts the comm link. So this conversation is kind of similar to the conversation that Anna had with Hector Cortez, although Astrid here is taking a lot of Cortez's talking points from the novels. But in the novels, Astrid himself didn't try to argue the point of his position. His position was always that he's in command and that's that. So it seems like he didn't really care, whereas Cortez did truly believe they were doing the right thing. The conversation I mentioned was during the firefight to reclaim Radio Free Slow Zone's headquarters after a lot of people died and Anna's position was under heavy fire. She called to the command center asking anyone for help, and she got Melba, who was eager to listen to what she had to say because she still trusted and liked Anna, and she took her information on good faith. But Hector Cortez, who had taken the role of Melba's protector, interrupted the conversation and to argue with Anna. He believed that she was acting out of selfish fear to protect her own life and the lives of everyone in the slow zone, where Cortez believed the stakes were bigger than that. But this only pissed Anna off, who argued that she's in the middle of a battlefield where she'll likely be killed while Cortez is safely in the command center out of harm's way, so which one of them is really the coward? She also argues that Cortez is acting out of fear and ignorance, as he doesn't understand this technology, so just assumes the best thing to do is destroy it. And that conversation, that back and forth, and the battle of wits was a lot more interesting, a lot more dynamic than the one we got here. Plus, I buy Cortez's position a lot more than I buy Astrid's position here. Plus, in this scene when Astrid tells Drummer she's not in command, my response to that is, why? Why isn't she in command? There hasn't been a mutiny, so she should still be in command. So I'm going to give this a -5. Then a broadcast comes in, which is played in the command center from Monica Stewart, who says they have important information and introduces Anna. She then tries to reason with everyone and tells them she knows they're scared, but she explained that the station is powering up because of it perceives them as a threat. But if they power down all the reactors, they can prove to it that they're not, and it will save everyone. This angers Astrid. He orders the transmission to be shut down, but any attempts to do so fail. So in the novels, the broadcast is a bit more professional in this, and rather than Anna appealing to people's emotions as she seems to be doing here, they present it as more of a matter of fact, where that is a way to save everyone's lives. And I believe they also talk about how Astrid's plan to destroy the ring will destroy all of humanity. And as I already mentioned, they talk about how Astrid is mentally ill and should be relieved of command where he can get the help he needs. Also, Anna isn't the only one who speaks, as Monica interviews many different people from Earth, Mars, and the Belt they do make more of a personal plea to the members of their crew, asking them to shut down their engines. Also in this scene, we see Melba watching this broadcast, seeming convinced by it, where in the novel she has more of a history with Anna, and even before she was convinced by Anna, she really wants to listen to her and what she has to say. So the book's version just works so much better on so many different levels, so I'm going to give this a -5. So after hearing Anna's broadcast, Grigori steps forward and asks Ashford if this is true, but Ashford simply says they don't have time to debate this. But Grigori then speaks to everyone in the command center, saying that he doesn't want everyone to die here and they should just take action, but Ashford interrupts him by shooting him dead. Now, this scene is kind of a stand-in for when Ashford shoots someone else in cold blood. As I mentioned in the novel, Sam kept trying to delay the comm laser from being weaponized. So Ashford was in a hurry to get this done, so every time he asked Sam how long it would take, she said it would be like 2 hours or 3 hours. But when that time had expired, she would always come up with another excuse on why it wouldn't work, saying that she'd need another 2 or 3 hours. After around the 5th time this happened, Ashford got sick of it and kind of suspected that Sam was stalling, so he ordered his security men to bring both Sam and her second-in-command to the command center. When he did, he asked her what the holdup was, and Sam gave some excuse and said it would take 3 hours to fix. He then asked her second if she concurred, but she did not, saying that it should only take 1 hour to fix, so Ashford immediately shoots Sam in the head, killing her. He then turned to the second, saying that she had 1 hour to get the comm laser working, and gestured with his gun, saying the clock's ticking. So this happened before Bull and Holden moved to take engineering, which is why they had to bring Naomi with them, because Sam was dead. It also gave Amos further motivation to kill anyone working for Ashford. In fact, at first, Amos demanded that he go with Bull in order to kill Ashford, but Holden said he was needed to stay and protect Anna, so Amos told Holden that he needed to kill Ashford then. Cortez was shocked by the incident, but Ashford threatened to have him tied up and gagged, so Melba helped Cortez to calm down. It was reasoned that when Ashford thought everyone there was going to die anyway, it didn't really make any difference if some people went a bit earlier. And again, the book's version is way better, much more earned. It makes a lot more sense for the story. When Ashford killed Sam, it was beyond shocking and really gritty moment that made it clear what the stakes were. And she was a character who had been around since the very first novel, so to kill her off so suddenly and unexpectedly was a really powerful moment. On the other hand, killing Grigori off didn't seem that big of a deal, as we barely knew or cared about the guy and already knew Ashford didn't like him, so a hell of a lot less impact, so I'm going to give this a -5. So after Ashford kills Grigori, he makes an announcement to everyone that they don't have time to waste. They all know what they need to do to save everyone back home, and they need to do it. He then asks menacingly if anyone wishes to debate him. He looks directly at Captain Lucas, obviously a bit worried that she will act against him, but instead she offers to assist him, saying that the broadcast will cause a panic, so her Marines will take care of it. She then orders Draper to stop the transmission. So in the novels, the Martians don't go after the broadcast. Ashford sends a team of his own men to do it. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, the Martian Marines actually end up joining forces with Bull. Also, we never see Ashford interact with any high-ranking UN or MCRN officials, which actually doesn't really make any sense, because it is mentioned in the novels that high-ranking officials in Earth and Mars helped him escape in order to retake the command center, yet they never come into play again. And the show at least explains this and makes it more plausible, so I'm going to give this a +2. So then we see Draper and her Marines go to the weapons locker to collect their armor, but they find that it's missing, and Trep makes a comment about thieving belters, but Draper simply says they don't need their armor for this, and then they load up. Then we see Diago and 2 other OPA men in the Martian armor charging towards engineering. So in the novels, Ashford ordered 4 of his men to take the Martian armor to go to engineering to retake the engine room, where here it's portrayed more as Diago's idea. Also in the novels, there was no clear path to get from the command center to engineering. After Bull and Holden's team secured engineering, Bull sent Holden along with Corn on a mission through the elevator shaft to get to the command center, mainly to get Holden out of his hair because he was being too protective of Naomi, who had work to do. So when they heard that Ashford had sent men in Martian armor to retake the engine room, they had assumed that they'd take the elevator shaft as that was the quickest path to engineering, so Holden and Corn prepared for death. But it turns out Ashford had assumed the elevator shaft was blocked to him, so instead Ashford stopped the drum from spinning so that his men in the Martian armor would have a clear path to the engine room. But by Ashford stopping the drum from spinning, he caused another incident similar to the one that happened when the slow zone slowed down, as stopping the drum so suddenly caused people to go flying everywhere, and many people died and many more people were injured, and there was like tons of civilians in the drum at the time, so it was another catastrophic incident. Several people were killed, or many people were killed, including Monica Stewart's assistant Oakju. So again, the book's version was much more involved, much more dire, much more interesting, and it really raised the stakes, so I'm going to give this a -5. So Diago and the other two men in Martian armor make quick work of the two guards protecting the engine room, killing them instantly, and one of their dead bodies drops to where Holden, Drummer, and Naomi are, and they realize they need to go. Diago quickly drops in, and Drummer shoots at him, but her gun does nothing against the Martian battle armor, and Diago smacks her with the knock and knocks her across the room. Holden and Naomi grab Drummer and they quickly escape into the airlock. Diago tries to shoot at them, but learns that the guns in the suit have been stripped of all their bullets. Holden, Naomi, and Drummer plan to escape through the elevator shaft while Diago and his team begin using the suits to pound their way through the airlock. So first off, in the novels, the way that Diago smacks Drummer across the room in his Martian armor is well established. That would have killed her. It's well established how powerful those Martian armor or powered suits are, and that it can rip people apart. So him smacking her across the room, she should be dead. But anyway, in the novels, Bull has about 20 people in engineering when Ashford's 4 men in Martian suits attack, and only 4 of them make it out alive, 4 out of Bull's 20, as most of his people are ripped apart and killed by these Martian suits. The 4 people that manage to make it are Naomi, Bull, and 2 of the Martian Marines, Juarez and Cass. And Juarez actually does manage to get a kill shot on one of the men wearing the Martian suits, but there's still 3 there chasing them. At Bull's insistence, Naomi goes ahead to join with Holden, where the others there try to slow the men in the Martian suits. They put up a blockade where Bull has to get out of his mech suit in order to get by it. Also, the part where the Martian suits have been deprived of all ammo also happened in the book, but the men who took them over were already aware of this, so it wasn't a surprise. So again, the book's version was more of a long, drawn-out battle where people were getting ripped apart and killed, and it was much more bloody and exciting and intense. So I'm going to give this a -5. So we then see Draper and her Marines come across Anna and Monica trying to stop their broadcast, but Amos and Alex fire at them. Trep is surprised they have weapons, as there weren't supposed to be any weapons on the Behemoth, and Draper yells out ordering them to cease their broadcast and come out with their hands raised. Alex hears Bobby's voice in surprise and calls out her name. Bobby is equally as surprised and calls out Alex's name. So in the novels, as I already touched upon, it was just a couple of people firing at... It wasn't just a couple of people firing at Amos and Alex. It was a huge battle with 2 large forces fighting each other, and a long, drawn-out, bloody gunfight with bullets flying everywhere, and it was war, it was hell. However, after Ashford stopped the drum, Monica had stopped her broadcast as the fighting was a bit out of hand, and of course a lot more people died, including one of her assistants. And it was also mentioned that her other assistant, Clip, was shot in the stomach and was bleeding out, and it was actually never mentioned in the novels whether or not he survived. So Anna wasn't dead. Monica thought that Anna was dead, but she wasn't. And once she returned to safety, she wanted to resume the broadcast. When Monica wouldn't do it, Anna slammed her against the wall and yelled at her. And Anna tried to reach out to see what was going on with Bull and Holden. And that's when she called the command center and asked for Melba's help, as I already touched on. Now, I do admit it is interesting inserting Draper into the situation, having her and Alex, two friends, be on opposite sides. But this simply doesn't compare to the long, drawn-out battle in the novel, so I'm going to give this a -3. So we then go to the command center where Melba does something wrong that causes a spark. So Ashford intercedes and tells her to be careful as it's a live wire. She apologizes and Ashford recognizes her as the one who tried to kill Holden. She tells him that the chemical blockers they have on her are making her fuzzy. So he asks her if he removes it, if she would be able to concentrate better, and she nods her head in confirmation. So he takes the chemical blockers off, and she asks him if he believes a good act at the end of your life can make up for all the terrible things you've done, and Ashford said he likes to believe so, which gets a bit more into his motivation to why he's doing what he's doing, because he thinks saving humanity will make up for all the horrible things he's done while he was a pirate. So in the novels, as I already explained, there was no chemical blockers, and Ashford purposely had her with him because of her combat implants. But the line about Melba asking if he thinks a good deed can make up for all the bad ones done, it's something that she asked Cortez in the novels, and it was in fact Cortez's biggest selling point for her to join them. It makes a bit less sense here in the show, where Melba didn't necessarily agree to help Ashford. She was just brought up because she's an electrician, which again I think makes Melba's storyline and her eventual turn a lot cleaner and better earned in the novels than it is here, so I'm going to give this a -3. So we go back to Draper, who tells Alex he needs to surrender, so Alex puts his gun down and agrees to go out and talk. Amos warns him that he's not going to let her stop them, so if it means she has to kill her, he's going to do that. Draper agrees to talk to Alex, which upsets Trep, as he says they're just stalling, and he asks, "What is it with you and these assholes?" So Alex comes out with his hands raised, and he talks to Bobby, who tells him their transmission is causing a panic and needs to stop, but Alex simply says that it's not going to happen, as Holden says this needs to happen to save everyone's lives. Draper then suggests that perhaps the station did something to Holden and he's not the Holden that he knows, but Alex retorts that he's going around putting his life on the line to save everyone's lives, so that is the Holden that he knows. But before the conversation can go any further, Trep attacks Alex, tackling him to the ground, and when Bobby tries to intercede, Oshie attacks her. A fight ensues where Bobby manages to knock Oshie out, but gets shot in the process. Amos gets a clear shot on Trep. Bobby yells at him not to shoot, to no avail, as Amos shoots him in the head, instantly killing him. Amos asks how many more of them are out there, but Bobby responds simply by saying clear. And then she and Alex go over to Amos, where he tells them to put their guns to the ground. Then Bobby collapses to the ground, and Alex goes to her, realizing that she's hurt. She simply tells them that more people will be coming for them, so whatever they gotta do, they need to do it fast. So as much as I like the inclusion of Draper into the storyline, who wasn't there in the books, it doesn't actually makes sense that Ashford only sent 3 Marines to stop the broadcast and not a whole army. Also, the Marines are being really obtuse and idiotic in this scene, which I don't buy, so I'm going to give this a -2. So then we go to the elevator shaft, where Holden, Naomi, and Drummer are still in suits, flying upward toward the command center, and they are being chased by Diago and his 2 men in the Martian battle armor. Holden tells Naomi to go up without them while he and Drummer stay behind to stop Diago's men. Holden throws a grenade that disables 2 of the men in Martian suits, but Diago is still pursuing them. Drummer tells Holden to give him the grenades and go on without her. Holden realizes what she's planning to do, to sacrifice herself in order to kill Diago, and tells her not to, but she insists and tells Holden she's sorry that she tried to kill him. He says that it's okay, but she tells him to tell Naomi that, and he says that he will, and he goes up to find Naomi. Drummer waits for Diago on a ledge with both grenades in her hands, ready to kill both of them when he arrives, but just as he's about to get there, the elevator comes flying down and smashes into Diago. And Naomi then calls out to Drummer and asks her if she's okay, and Drummer tells Naomi she knows now why she doesn't need to carry a gun. She then tells Holden and Naomi to go on without her. So in the novels, after they get in the elevator shaft and put up a barricade that the men in Martian suits have to break through, Bull stays behind right on the other side of the barricade, and as soon as one of the men in suits breaks through, Bull smiles and says hello and then sets off the grenades, killing them both. Holden, Naomi, Corin, Juarez, and Cass arrive at the hatch to the command center, but they can't get it open. While Naomi is messing around with the circuits trying to get it open, Cass spots the 2 remaining men in Martian suits charging towards them. They all get into position that they're ready to shoot and fire at them, even though they know their weapons will do nothing to them. Naomi then climbs into a shaft near the elevator. Holden doesn't know why, but is thankful that she's at least out of the way. And then a reserve elevator comes into place below them and then begins to fly right towards the men in Martian suits, ramming them at full speed. Corin yells after the elevator saying, "Fuck you," to the men it just killed. So, when I first saw this scene in the show, I thought they were going to kill off Drummer, as it seems they were giving her Bull's death, but they combined it with the scene with the elevator in order to save her life. As much as I think that's a cop-out, I am glad they didn't kill Drummer because she's a good character to keep around. But here's my question. In the show, Holden took out 2 men by throwing a grenade, and they still had 2 grenades left. So why not then use those last 2 grenades to kill Diago? I mean, it worked well enough to kill those other 2 guys, so surely they had 2 more chances to kill Diago that probably would work. Seems like Drummer was sacrificing her life for no reason. Also, it's been speculated that Diago had survived, but if the show stays true to the novels, he's dead, because Juarez clarifies that the suits would have survived the collision just fine, but anyone inside them would be liquefied. I will say I did like Drummer's final words to Holden. I thought that was a nice moment, but it's kind of undercut by the fact that she survives. I think the book's version had more tension to it, so the payoff felt more rewarding as well. I absolutely love how Corin yells "fuck you" after the men got killed by an elevator. That was just a great thing for me. Anyway, I'm going to give this a -3. So next we see Ashford in the command center as one of his men alerts him that the comm laser is ready to fire, so he gives the order, but the laser misses the ring because it's misaligned. Ashford wants it fixed immediately, but his men says it will take a few minutes. Meanwhile, Naomi and Holden approach the command center from the corridor, but are stopped by 2 men firing at them from the command center. So in the novels, they never fire at the ring and miss, but Ashford retakes engineering. He has the engineers there work on finishing the modifications to the laser and tells them to hurry. Also in the novels, Holden, Naomi, Juarez, Cass, and Corin are blocked from entering the corridor that leads to the command center by a locked hatch. And Holden tells this to Anna when she calls him asking for his status. So Anna calls to the command center and talks to Melba, trying to convince her to open the hatch for Holden. And Anna tells her how Holden and Naomi spared her life even after she tried to kill them, that they still refused to let her die, and they stopped Bull from doing so, and now their lives are in danger. And this seemed to convince Melba, who decided that she didn't want Naomi and Holden to die, so she opened the hatch door. So Holden went with Juarez, Cass, and Corin to invade the bridge, telling Naomi to stay behind, but as soon as Juarez crossed the corner that led to the command center, he was shot, and then he fell back where Naomi worked on healing him. Meanwhile, Cass, Holden, and Corin continued to fire at their attackers, but they were greatly outnumbered. Also, Ashford ordered that Melba be shot for opening the door even after Cortez protested, but Ashford's men got distracted by Holden's attack and Melba managed to slip into the background unnoticed. So again, the book's version was much more involved, much more intense, so I'm going to give this a -5. So Holden looks at the men blocking their way and looks at the one gun he has and determines there's no way they'll make it. So he tells Naomi he loves her and then he throws his gun out and says that he surrenders. Holden and Naomi then approach the command center with their hands up, and Holden tries to reason with Ashford, saying that he knows he's trying to save lives. He is too, but if they keep reacting to the situation without understanding what's going on. Naomi also pleads to Ashford, saying that he knows her and that she stopped following fanatics a long time ago, but Ashford simply orders his men to shoot them. But upon hearing this, Melba is upset and uses her tongue to activate her implants and attacks Ashford, knocking him down, and then she goes to disable the ship's engines. So in the novels, Holden never surrenders. He, Corin, and Cass continue firing, although they get close to running out of ammo, and he knows that they're never going to make it. As for Melba, she's split on what to do, as Cortez convinced her she could die to save millions, but now Anna is telling her that her actions would actually doom all of humanity. So there's this inner struggle between her. But then Cortez tells her that she shouldn't have opened the door, and that she should beg for forgiveness, and Ashford will forgive her. And this throws Melba over the edge, who asks, who are Ashford and Cortez to forgive her? Just when Ashford was finally gaining control of the comm laser and was about to use it, Melba activates her implant and attacks Ashford and flies through the air as she's being shot at, and she shuts down Behemoth's engines. So first off, I don't get what Holden's plan is here. What was he planning to do when he got to Command Center anyway? As he should have known he would never be able to talk Ashford out of it. Him dying fighting like he did in the novels makes a lot more sense to me. Also, Melba's storyline made so much more sense in the novels, as the show did very little to earn her sudden turn to wanting to help Holden. In the show, it's implied that it's Holden's words that turn her, but that makes little sense, as she thought Holden was a self-serving narcissist, so it seems anything he said would have been viewed through that lens. Whereas in the novels, it was Anna's words that convinced her, after it was well established that she built a trust with Anna and that she trusted her. And plus, we just got so much more lead up to the inner struggle of Melba having, that Melba was having, as it was a big question on which way she would fall. So I remember when I first read the novel and I read the line where it said Melba activated her implants, I literally put the book down so I could clap my hands and cheer. It was such a well-earned moment, a very exciting moment, a relieving moment that she was doing the right thing. It was one of the best moments I had reading a novel ever in my life. Whereas in the show, Melba's turn seemed to come out of nowhere and felt like more like contrived writing to get them out of a corner that they've written themselves into. So I'm going to give this 2 -5s. So as soon as the power shuts down, Holden finds himself naked on a planet looking up at the sky where he sees a ring gate. Then he's back on the Behemoth where all the fighting has stopped and everyone looks in awe as the station powers down and all the ring gates open around them, and Holden simply says, well, I guess it worked. So in the novels, Holden goes to a planet for a lot longer and has a long drawn out conversation with Miller. When Holden asks if Earth has been saved, Miller says, well, sure, but that wasn't his main goal. And Miller admits that he doesn't really care about Earth, and all of this seems really ominous. So I gotta say here, I actually like the show's version better. I didn't like the fact that they made Miller all creepy, and I think what the show did with him making him feel more like Miller actually worked better. Plus, the music in this scene was amazing and really conveyed the awe everyone had at seeing the ring gates open for the first time, much more than the books did, so I'm going to give this a +5. So next we get a montage over a voiceover of Holden talking to Miller. So I'll get to the voiceover shortly. First I want to talk about a few of the visuals we get. First we see Drummer going to Ashford and offering to share in a drink, which is a callback to earlier in the season when Ashford tried to get Drummer to drink with him. And of course it's indicating that she's willing to bury the hatchet. And he turns away looking regretful, obviously still feeling guilty over what he did. Now in the novels no such scene exists. Ashford did survive, but it was implied he was thrown in the deepest, darkest cell for the rest of his life, which, well, he should be. Now, granted, in the show, Ashford didn't commit nearly as many atrocities as Book Ashford did, as Book Ashford was responsible for a lot of deaths. But he did kill Grigori in cold blood, and that alone means he deserves to go to prison for life, or at least 20 years. But production news from Season 4 indicates that he'll be out and about perfectly well next season, and he most certainly isn't deserving of being forgiven by Drummer as he tried to kill her. And poor Grigori. Nobody seems to care about Grigori. It doesn't matter that Ashford thought that he was doing the right thing. He deserves to go to prison for killing someone in cold blood. Now, this is kind of similar to the novel, which ends in an epilogue where Anna has a discussion with Hector Cortez, who apologizes for what he did. And yeah, there's a good case that Cortez deserves to go to prison too, even though he didn't personally kill anyone himself. He freed and supported Ashford, who did kill a bunch of people. But he didn't kill anyone himself. In fact, he was sorely against Ashford doing so I can understand Anna forgiving him, especially Anna, who is a very forgiving person. Cortez said that he was wrong and he backed the wrong horse, and Anna simply says she understands that he was afraid in doing what he thought was right. Now that I totally buy. Drummer forgiving Ashford, I totally don't buy. So I'm going to give this a -5. So then we get a shot of Clarissa in the med bay healing, and Anna comes and sits down with her and gives her a caring look and then takes her hand and Melba cries. Now this looks to be on the Rocinante, but it very well could be any MCRN ship, but I'm going to assume it's the Rocinante. So in the novels, after it's all over, Anna goes to Holden and his crew and asks him to take Melba back to Earth, because on any other ship, especially a UN ship, she's likely to be killed before she gets back. Holden says no, but Anna asks if she can find a way to buy the Rocinante from the Martians and then give it to him. Would he do it then? And Holden says, yeah, sure. So Anna contacts Tilly, who said that she owed her a big, expensive favor for helping Melba, so she asks her to buy the Rocinante, which is in fact a huge favor, but she agrees to do it. And Holden is just shocked because he didn't actually expect Anna could do it, but he keeps his word and he transports Melba back to Earth. It should be noted that Anna didn't go with them. She went back to Earth on the Thomas Prince. So they gave Melba an anklet that would pump her full of sedatives if she activated her implants or if any of the crew activated it. So they let her have free reign of the ship. Holden had very little interaction with her, but Alex was always being kind to her, showing her around. But she mainly worked with Amos, helping in repairs, and the two of them formed a bit of a bond, and he nicknamed her Peaches. Now, I understand why the show didn't have all that, and I'm fine with it, although the show never resolved the issue with the Martians wanting the Rocinante back, but I feel, I already took points away from that in the previous video. Here, I think this scene actually works, and it's quite powerful, so I'm going to give this a +2. Next, we see Bobby Draper sit in the co-pilot seat next to Alex on the Rocinante, and she nods at him. Now, this never happened in the books as Bobby wasn't in Book 3, but this seemed to imply that Bobby was joining the crew of the Reuniting, but production information indicates that will not be the case. At the very least, Bobby won't be on the Reuniting in Season 4, she'll be on Mars. To me, it would make much more sense for her to join the Reuniting crew as she turned on her own Marines and got one of them killed, so it seems she wouldn't be welcomed on Mars, but whatever. I feel it's too early to take points away because it all depends on how this is explained in Season 4, so I'll reserve judgment until Season 4 for that. For now, I thought this worked well for what was established in the show, so I'm going to give this a +3. So getting to Holden's voiceover, in the voiceover he says he doubts that Miller let them go out of the kindness of his heart, that it was always about opening the ring gates. Holden then explains that the ring gates have made 1,300 habitable worlds available to humanity, so of course they're going to go, and it will be another blood-soaked gold rush. Then he says he's scared because he saw the civilization that built the ring gates and how they were wiped out, and he doesn't know who killed them. Miller then says that that's what he'd like to find out and that he's going to need a ride. Then we see Holden and the Reuniting go through the ring gate into the great unknown. Now, it seems like the context of the scene that the Reuniting is going through the gate to some unknown system, and if that's true, there must have been a massive time jump during this montage. In the novels, as I just explained, they return to Sol System and to Earth after the Slow Zone incident. However, the sentiments he expresses about Miller's goals always being opening the ring gates is something Miller confirms in the novels in quite a creepy way. So I did like this better, and the visuals and the music all worked better to set things up for the story to come, so I'm going to give this a +2. So my final adaptation score for Baldur's Gate is a -55, which is by far the lowest score I've ever given an episode yet. Now, it's not that I hate this episode. I do actually find this quite an enjoyable and a good episode to watch. But in my opinion, it is the worst adapted episode of the entire show. To me, it has a similar feeling to movies like Ender's Game, Congo, Dark Tower, or The Golden Compass. All examples of films that try to cram too much story into too short of a time period. As this episode takes nearly a quarter of the book and tries to cram it into one 1-hour episode. Not only that, but it's my favorite part of my favorite book of the Expanse series, and I believe it could have been stretched out over at the very least 4 episodes. It took a lot of very exciting stories and boiled them down to much more simpler run-of-the-mill stories. It also lost a lot of elements, such as Melba's story arc, which was amazing in the books but felt totally flat in the show and wasn't at all earned. And Ashford's character was a bit more muddled, and he didn't have as clear as a story arc, and Anna had a lot less to do as well. So all in all, I do think this episode had the least quality in adapting, but it was mostly probably due to like budget constraints, and maybe they were worried about the show being canceled, which in fact it was, and they just plotted out the seasons a bit, didn't like take as much care in plotting out the seasons. But as I said, all in all, still an enjoyable episode. So that's it for my book-to-show comparison for The Expanse Season 3, Episode 13. So I have finally caught up to the show with my book-to-show comparison. I gotta give a big thanks to everyone who stuck with me this whole time. I started this series 2 years ago. My original idea was to do one video comparing the Expanse novels to the show, but then I realized I had way too much to say for just one video, so then I thought maybe I'd do 4 videos, and then I thought, oh, maybe I should do 5 or 6, and finally I just said, the hell with it, I'll just do one video for every single episode. Now, it's been a time-consuming and sometimes difficult task, but I'm glad I finally got there in the end. I will continue with my book-to-show comparisons for Season 4 and onward, and I will try to stay up to date with the episodes as they air. So thanks again for watching, and be sure to check out my channel for many more videos on The Expanse, as well as videos on many other shows like Star Trek, Lost, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.